Imagine for a moment that the history you know is just a small portion of a vast, ancient tapestry. Imagine that beneath the sands of an ancient desert or in the heart of an impenetrable jungle lie the remains of civilizations that were once as powerful, as advanced, as the great empires of Rome, Greece, or ancient Egypt. Think of their cities, their monumental temples, and their bustling markets, brimming with life, knowledge, and wealth. And now, imagine that all of it, all of that glory, simply vanished. It disappeared, leaving barely a trace in the history books we read in school. What if I told you that these forgotten civilizations are not myths or legends, but historical realities? What you are about to discover are not fairy tales or archaeological fantasies. They are the raw, fascinating facts of real kingdoms, with kings, armies, and systems of government as sophisticated as our own. Kingdoms that once dominated vast territories, controlled the most important trade routes, and developed technologies that were lost with them to time. This documentary is an expedition into the deepest corners of our history, a journey to unearth these giants that remained in the darkness of time. Prepare for a revelation that will force you to question everything you thought you knew about the past and the destiny of humanity. But the question that underlies all of this is simple yet profound. Why did we forget them? The answer is as complex as the kingdoms themselves that were lost. There is no single reason, but rather a series of intertwined events that, over time, erased their existence from our collective memory. Sometimes, it was the forces of nature that played a ruthless role. Think of the prolonged droughts that decimated harvests, the floods that reclaimed entire cities, or the changes in riverbeds that cut off the lifeblood of a civilization. Nature does not discriminate, and great empires are as vulnerable to its whims as any other culture. The collapse of the Indus Valley civilization, for example, remains a mystery, but many theories point to catastrophic climate change. Cities of brick and concrete, with advanced sanitation systems that rivaled the Romans, vanished without a clear trace of conflict or invasion, as if the people had simply walked away. But humans are also experts in the art of forgetting. Throughout history, great empires don't just conquer territory, they conquer the narrative. When a new power emerges, it often has an interest in erasing the history of its predecessors to legitimize its own rule. Libraries are burned, temples are plundered, and the conqueror's version becomes the only history that remains. The rise of the Roman Empire in Europe and the Mediterranean, for example, not only meant the fall of other powers but also the fading away of their customs and stories. Think of the Picts, a fierce and enigmatic people who inhabited northern Britain. Their written records are scarce, almost non-existent, because their history was told by their enemies and, eventually, absorbed into that of a new kingdom. And then there's the economy. A civilization can be brilliant and powerful, but if the trade route that sustains it shifts, it can collapse in a matter of generations. The kingdom of Aksum in modern-day Ethiopia was an immense power in the ancient world, a crucial crossroads between Rome and India. Its impressive obelisks, carved from a single piece of rock, attest to its might. But with the rise of Islam and the shift of trade routes through the Arabian Peninsula, Aksum lost its reason for being. Its economy withered, and with time, its splendor became a whisper in history. There was no great battle that destroyed it, only the slow agony of economic oblivion. Each of these kingdoms is a reminder of the fragility of our existence. They teach us that power is fleeting, that greatness can be reclaimed by nature or by a rival, and that the past is not a closed chapter, but a mystery waiting to be solved. In the minutes to come, we will unearth these sleeping giants. We will travel to the deserts of the Middle East, the jungles of Asia, and the icy lands of the North to understand what happened, why they are gone, and most importantly what we can learn from their fall. This is the story of the forgotten kingdoms, and their history is far more relevant to us than we could ever imagine. From the monumental narratives of vanished empires, we now turn our gaze to a specific corner of the world, a place where sand and sea once met to forge one of the most vital and now most forgotten kingdoms of the ancient world. Our journey takes us to the shimmering waters of the Persian Gulf, a region that history books often skim over in favor of the more famous civilizations of Mesopotamia and Egypt. But here, on this archipelago of sun-baked islands, a kingdom once thrived. This was the legendary land of Dilmun, a name whispered in the ancient clay tablets of Sumer, a place revered as a paradise, a sacred land of trade and wealth. In the 3rd millennium BC, while the ziggurats of Ur were touching the sky and the pharaohs were building their pyramids, Dilmun was silently establishing itself as the linchpin of an immense maritime network. Its strategic location wasn't just a coincidence, it was its very destiny. Positioned at the heart of the trade triangle that connected the flourishing civilizations of Mesopotamia, the fertile lands of the Indus Valley, and the resource-rich regions of Magan, modern-day Oman, Dilmun became the ultimate middleman. Every ship laden with copper from Magan, every caravan of textiles and pearls from the Indus, every cargo of grain and dates from Sumer, all of it had to pass through Dilmun's ports. The wealth that flowed through this kingdom was unimaginable, allowing its rulers to live in a luxury that has only been hinted at by archaeological discovery. But Dilmun was not just a toll gate on a highway. It was a civilization in its own right, a place with a unique culture, a distinctive art form, and a sophisticated society. The most striking evidence of this lies in its vast burial mounds. Spread across the landscape like a lunar city, these mounds number in the tens of thousands, a testament to a dense and prosperous population. Excavations have revealed elaborate burial rituals and personal possessions buried with the dead, ornate pottery, carved seals, and tools, offering a window into the daily lives and beliefs of the Dilmunites. These cylindrical seals, in particular, are a treasure trove of information. Their intricate carvings depict scenes of daily life, religious ceremonies, and mythical creatures, revealing a vibrant and complex worldview that was distinctly their own. Archaeologists have long been fascinated by Dilmun's reputation in ancient texts. The Sumerians, who knew it well, wrote of Dilmun as a sacred land, a place of purity where disease and death did not exist. They spoke of the gods of Dilmun and the fresh waters that gave life to its paradise. While this was likely a mix of myth and hyperbole, it speaks volumes about the awe and respect that Dilmun commanded from its contemporaries. The kingdom's wealth wasn't just in goods, it was in its identity, its reputation as a blessed and prosperous realm. It was this prestige that allowed it to maintain its independence for so long, navigating the turbulent waters of great power politics by serving as a neutral and indispensable partner to all. For centuries, Dilmun flourished. Its merchants grew rich, its rulers built palaces, and its influence spread across the trade routes of the ancient world. But history, as we have seen, is relentless, and a kingdom's fortune can change with the currents. By the late 2nd millennium BC, new trade routes emerged, and the power dynamics of the region shifted. The great empires of Mesopotamia, now dominated by the Kassites and later the Assyrians, began to exert more direct control over the trade that had once been the sole domain of Dilmun. The flow of copper and other goods was rerouted, and Dilmun's position as the irreplaceable middleman began to erode. Its golden age faded not in a spectacular war, but in a gradual, almost imperceptible decline. The once bustling ports became quieter, the great trading ships visited less often, and the wealth that had sustained the kingdom for so long began to dry up. The final demise of Dilmun remains shrouded in a captivating mystery. While it eventually fell under the control of the Assyrian Empire in the 8th century BC, its cultural identity and prominence had already been lost. It simply faded away from the historical record, a ghost of its former self. Today, the kingdom of Dilmun is no more than a footnote in a few academic texts, a name known only to a handful of dedicated scholars. But its silence speaks volumes. It tells the story of how even the most crucial and wealthy of civilizations can be forgotten, not by the sword, but by the subtle, relentless forces of change. The sands of time have covered its cities, but through the dedicated work of a few, the whispers of Dilmun are beginning to emerge, reminding us that history is never truly lost. It is simply waiting to be rediscovered. From the sun-baked sands of Dilmun, our journey now takes us to a land of a different kind, a place of dense, humid jungles where towering stone monuments stand as silent sentinels to a glorious past. We travel to Southeast Asia, to the heart of what is now Cambodia, to a kingdom that built its power not on trade routes across the sea, but on an ingenious control of water itself. This was the Khmer Empire, a civilization that reached its zenith between the 9th and 15th centuries, leaving behind one of the most breathtaking archaeological sites on Earth, the ancient capital of Angkor. At its height, Angkor was arguably the largest pre-industrial urban center in the world, a colossal city that dwarfed its European contemporaries. But what made it truly unique was its relationship with water. The Khmer kings were master engineers who created an intricate system of reservoirs, canals, and moats known as barays to harness the seasonal monsoons. These vast hydraulic systems weren't just for irrigation, they were the very soul of the empire, a symbol of royal power and a life-giving force that allowed the land to support a population of nearly 1 million people. This mastery over water enabled an agricultural surplus that fueled the empire's immense wealth and funded the construction of its legendary temples. And those temples are the reason we remember the Khmer at all. While most of their wooden cities have been swallowed by the jungle, their stone monuments have endured. The most famous of these is Angkor Wat, a breathtaking temple mountain dedicated to the Hindu god Vishnu, and later repurposed for Buddhism. Its scale is epic, its bas-reliefs are mesmerizing, and its architectural precision is mind-boggling. But Angkor Wat is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Nearby lies the Mayan temple, with its hundreds of serene giant faces carved into the stone, each one a mystery, a silent witness to a faith and a people who lived and died here. The grandeur of these structures tells us of an empire that was not just powerful in a political sense, but also in a spiritual one. Their kings saw themselves as god-kings, and their monumental construction projects were not just acts of piety but assertions of their divine right to rule. The Golden Age of the Khmer was a period of both artistic and military brilliance. Under the reign of kings like Jayavarman VII, the empire's power reached its peak, extending its influence across much of what is now Thailand, Vietnam, and Laos. They built an extensive network of roads that connected their far-flung territories, facilitating trade, communication, and military movement. Their armies were a formidable force, their culture a unique blend of Hindu and Buddhist traditions, and their cities a testament to a level of social and economic organization that was centuries ahead of its time. For over 600 years, the Khmer people thrived, a colossus of the jungle, a beacon of civilization in a world that was still finding its way. But just as a sudden downpour can bring a river to flood, the end of the Khmer Empire was not a single, catastrophic event, but a combination of forces that gradually eroded its foundations. One of the leading theories points to the very system that sustained them. For centuries, their hydraulic engineering provided stability, but by the 14th century, a series of prolonged droughts followed by intense monsoons may have wreaked havoc on their delicate water management system. The carefully maintained canals and reservoirs either dried up or were overwhelmed, leading to agricultural failure and famine. When a civilization's life-giving resource fails, the clock starts ticking on its very existence. This environmental stress was compounded by relentless conflict. The Khmer were in constant warfare with their neighbors, particularly the ascendant Ayutthaya kingdom of Siam. The sacking of Angkor by the Siamese in 1431 marked a turning point, severely weakening the empire. But it was not just external pressure, there were internal shifts as well. The rise of Theravada Buddhism, which stripped the king of his divine godlike status, may have contributed to a social and political unraveling, undermining the very authority that had held the empire together for so long. Ultimately, the Khmer Empire did not so much fall as it simply faded. Its vast cities were not left in ruins by a single, final blow, but were abandoned. The jungle, which had been pushed back for centuries, slowly reclaimed what was once its own. The people moved away, leaving the temples and palaces to be slowly swallowed by the roots and vines of the forest. The forgotten empire became a ghost city, its grand monuments a haunting reminder of a civilization that, for reasons both environmental and political, chose to walk away from its very heart. Today, as we stand before the majestic stones of Angkor, we are not just looking at a lost civilization. We are looking at a powerful cautionary tale about the delicate balance between human ingenuity and the unforgiving power of nature. From the steaming jungles of Southeast Asia, we now journey to a place of stark and misty beauty, the northern reaches of the British Isles. Here, amid the glens and lochs of Scotland, once stood a kingdom as fierce and mysterious as any we have encountered. They left no great stone cities like Angkor, nor did they control a vast web of trade like Dilmun. Yet, their story is perhaps the most compelling example of a civilization that vanished from the historical record, not in a storm of fire and blood, but in a gradual, almost imperceptible whisper. This was the land of the Picts. Their very name, derived from the Latin picti meaning painted ones, tells us what little their enemies knew of them. The Romans, who spent centuries trying to conquer the island of Britannia, found themselves faced with a people they could not subdue. The Picts were a formidable force, masters of guerrilla warfare, who fought from a land that was as much their ally as their weapon. They were an enigma to the Roman legions, a people who built no monumental roads or marble statues, but who left a legacy of astonishing and complex art carved in stone. This is the central mystery of the Picts. They left no written language of their own. All that we know of their beliefs, their social structure, and their history comes from the words of their enemies and the silent stories they left etched in stone. These are the Pictish symbol stones, standing today in fields, on cliff tops, and in quiet churchyards, a haunting and beautiful alphabet of a lost culture. These stones are covered with intricate carvings of animals, swimming salmon, stoic bulls, majestic eagles, along with abstract symbols whose meaning we can only guess at. Were they family crests? Markers of territory? Memorials to great kings or warriors? While we may never know their full meaning, they reveal a people with a sophisticated and deeply symbolic worldview, a people who saw the world not through the lens of Latin or Roman letters, but through the enduring power of myth and art. For centuries, the Picts held their own against the powerful forces of their time. They successfully resisted the Roman Empire, ensuring that the Roman conquest of Britain would never be complete. Later, they fought off the invading Angles and other Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, keeping their northern lands free from foreign rule. Their strength was not in a centralized hierarchical empire, but in a series of powerful chiefdoms and a shared culture, bound together by a common identity and a deep connection to their land. It was a society with its own unique customs, its own forms of justice, and a vibrant artistic tradition that flourished even in the face of constant external threats. But the story of the Picts is not one of a sudden defeat. Their disappearance was a far more subtle and poignant process. By the 9th century, their kingdom was facing a new and terrifying threat: the Viking raiders who were plundering the coasts of Britain. To survive, the Picts found themselves needing to ally with their old rivals, the Scots of the neighboring kingdom of Dalriada. Through a series of political maneuvers, intermarriages, and a shared need for a unified defense, the two kingdoms began to merge. Over time, the Pictish identity, their language, and their customs were slowly absorbed by the more dominant Scottish culture. Their name, their language, and their unique way of life simply faded away, leaving behind a silence in the historical record. The kingdom of the Picts was not destroyed, it was assimilated. Its people did not vanish in a single battle, they became the ancestors of modern-day Scotland. Today, the only tangible evidence of this once powerful kingdom are the carved stones and the mysterious symbols that remain. They stand as a silent testimony to a people who once dominated the northern lands, a people whose history was not so much lost as it was absorbed into a new, grander narrative. They are a powerful reminder that some of the greatest mysteries of history are not found in the thunder of epic battles, but in the quiet, gradual shifts that change the very identity of a nation. From the misty glens of Scotland, we now travel to a land of harsh and relentless sun, where the landscape is sculpted by wind and the passage of time. This is the vast desert of the Middle East, a place we often think of as an empty expanse, a barrier between civilizations. But in a secluded canyon here, a people not only survived but thrived, building a kingdom on the most improbable of foundations. This was the Nabatean kingdom, a civilization of brilliant merchants who turned an inhospitable desert into their greatest strength, and who left behind one of the most stunning yet most misunderstood cities on the planet. For centuries, the Nabateans were nomads, masters of the desert, experts at navigating its treacherous dunes and finding its hidden sources of water. They were not builders of empires in the traditional sense. They were masters of commerce. Their kingdom was not defined by a standing army or a vast territory, but by their control of the precious caravan routes that carried spices, incense and perfumes from the Arabian Peninsula to the Mediterranean. They understood that in the desert, water was the ultimate currency, and they developed a staggering expertise in hydraulic engineering. They carved intricate systems of channels, cisterns, and dams into the rock to collect every last drop of rainfall, creating a network of oases and strongholds that made them indispensable to anyone seeking to cross their land. Their ingenious methods of water conservation turned the desert from an enemy into an ally. And at the heart of their kingdom was a city so breathtakingly unique it seems to defy reality. We know it as Petra, the rose-red city, half as old as time. But Petra was not built in the conventional sense. It was carved. The Nabateans did not stack stone upon stone. They meticulously sculpted their entire city from the living sandstone cliffs. The most famous structure, the treasury or Al-Khazna, is a masterpiece of Hellenistic architecture, but it is just one of hundreds of facades carved directly into the rock. Beyond this iconic facade lies a vast network of tombs, temples, monasteries, and homes, all intricately carved into the canyon walls. It was a city designed to impress, a symbol of the Nabateans' wealth and a testament to their incredible skill. But Petra was more than just a magnificent necropolis. It was a living, breathing city, a vibrant cosmopolitan hub where merchants from east and west converged. Its architecture is a fascinating blend of cultures, a testament to its role as a melting pot. The facades show Greek and Roman columns, but they are fused with a uniquely Nabatean flair, a style that reflects their independence and their identity as bridge builders between worlds. The city had its own theater, a grand colonnaded street, and sophisticated public spaces, all designed to host a population that was at the center of the world's most lucrative trade. They were a people who, through sheer ingenuity and hard work, created a city in a place where no city should have existed. So why did such a brilliant kingdom fade into obscurity? Like many of the civilizations we have explored, the Nabateans were not conquered in a single, decisive battle. Their decline was gradual. As the Roman Empire expanded, it absorbed the Nabatean kingdom, formally annexing it in 106 AD. The Romans, with their endless resources and unparalleled engineering, began to build new roads and establish alternative sea routes that bypassed the old caravan trails. The Nabateans' monopoly on desert trade was broken, and their strategic importance withered away. The city of Petra was not destroyed, it simply lost its purpose. Its people were assimilated into the broader Roman world, and the magnificent canyons became a silent monument to a time when desert merchants ruled the trade routes. For centuries, Petra remained a ghost city, visited only by Bedouin tribes who held its secrets close. It was not until the early 19th century that a Swiss explorer, disguised as a sheik, managed to enter the canyon and reveal the lost city to the Western world. Its rediscovery was a monumental moment, a testament to the fact that even a kingdom that was completely forgotten can be brought back to life, its secrets waiting to be read in the stunning sandstone walls that it left behind. The Nabateans may have vanished from the pages of history, but the magnificent legacy they carved into the rock ensures that their story will never be truly lost. From the stark, sun-beaten canyons of the Middle East, our path leads us now to a land of a very different kind. A vast, dense and humid rainforest, a green labyrinth covering much of Central America. For centuries, this jungle was home to one of the most enigmatic civilizations the world has ever known. They built towering pyramids that rivaled those of Egypt, charted the heavens with stunning accuracy, and developed a written language and a concept of 0 centuries before Europe. Yet, the great cities of the Maya were not destroyed by a foreign invader. Instead, they were quietly swallowed by the jungle, leaving behind a profound and haunting mystery. The Maya are a fascinating paradox. We often speak of them as a singular empire, but they were, in fact, a collection of powerful, competing city-states that shared a common culture, religion, and language. For over 1,500 years, they thrived in a challenging environment, a testament to their incredible ingenuity. They were not just builders of monumental architecture like the iconic temples of Tikal and Calakmul, they were master agriculturalists who transformed the rainforest landscape to feed millions. They understood the delicate balance of their ecosystem, creating raised fields and terraced hillsides to make the most of the land. Their advanced knowledge of mathematics and astronomy allowed them to create a precise calendar system that tracked the movements of celestial bodies with incredible accuracy. This was a civilization that seemed to be in perfect harmony with its world. But that harmony was not to last. The puzzle of their mysterious decline has captivated scholars for generations, and in recent years a powerful new theory has emerged, backed by overwhelming scientific evidence. It turns out the very climate that had nurtured the Maya for so long turned against them. Modern paleoclimatology, using data from lakebed sediment cores and ancient stalagmites, has revealed that the Maya lowlands were hit by a series of severe and prolonged droughts in the 9th and 10th centuries. These weren't just short, dry spells. These were megadroughts that lasted for decades, pushing an already fragile agricultural system to its breaking point. The complex system of reservoirs and irrigation canals failed. The fields dried up. And the food supply, which had sustained their dense population centers, simply disappeared. The consequences of this environmental collapse were swift and brutal. The elaborate social and political order of the Maya was built on the foundation of the king and the priest, who were believed to have a divine connection to the gods who controlled the rains. When the rains failed, the rulers lost their credibility. Famine and thirst led to widespread social unrest and internal conflict. Warfare between rival city-states, always a part of their history, intensified dramatically as they fought over dwindling resources. The people, no longer trusting their leaders to appease the gods, lost faith in their entire system of governance. It was a perfect storm of environmental stress and political unraveling. The result was not a single grand collapse but a piecemeal abandonment. One by one, the great Mayan cities were deserted. The royal dynasties ceased to be recorded on stone monuments, their elaborate ceremonies were no longer performed, and the great urban centers became ghost towns. The population did not vanish, they simply dispersed, fleeing the cities to find food and water in the more remote areas of the countryside. They left behind their great pyramids and palaces not as ruins of a destroyed civilization, but as magnificent monuments to a people who chose to walk away, a silent testimony to a social and environmental failure. Today, as we marvel at the incredible temples of Tikal rising above the jungle canopy, we are not just looking at a lost civilization. we are looking at a powerful and sobering lesson. The story of the Maya reminds us that even with the most advanced technology, a sophisticated social structure, and a deep understanding of the cosmos, no civilization is immune to the fundamental forces of nature. The rise and fall of the Maya serve as a haunting reminder that a society's prosperity is ultimately tied to the health and stability of its environment, and when that delicate balance is broken, even the mightiest can fall and be forgotten. The stories of the forgotten kingdoms we've explored thus far share a common thread. They remind us that the human story is far more complex than the one found in our textbooks. We've seen how civilizations, through war, climate, and the gradual shifting of power, can be swallowed by the silent tides of time. But what if the story doesn't end there? What if the same ingenuity that built these empires is now, centuries later, bringing them back to life? Today we are not just excavating ruins, we are using cutting-edge technology to peer through the veil of time, finding civilizations we once thought were lost forever. This is the new frontier of archaeology, a silent revolution that is rewriting history before our very eyes. If you are as fascinated by this journey of discovery as we are, and if you want to be a part of unearthing these lost stories, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support allows us to continue bringing these incredible narratives to light and to explore the hidden chapters of human history. For centuries, archaeologists relied on intuition, luck, and painstaking manual labor. A shovel, a trowel, a brush, these were the tools of the trade. But in the last few decades, a new generation of technology has given us a superpower, the ability to see the invisible. Perhaps the most revolutionary of these is something called LiDAR, or light detection and ranging. Mounted on a plane or a drone, this technology fires billions of laser pulses at the ground every second. The pulses penetrate even the densest jungle canopy, bouncing off the forest floor and returning to a sensor. A computer then compiles this data, removing the trees and vegetation to create a stunningly accurate 3D map of the land beneath. It's like peeling back a green curtain to reveal the ghosts of cities. Using LiDAR, archaeologists have recently discovered vast, previously unknown urban sprawl around the famous temples of the Maya, revealing a population far larger than we ever imagined. It's proving that what we thought were isolated ceremonial centers were, in fact, just the tip of a massive, interconnected network of cities. But our new vision isn't limited to seeing what's hidden by the jungle. We can now see what lies beneath the earth itself. Ground-penetrating radar, or GPR, uses radar pulses to create a map of what's buried underground. It allows archaeologists to detect buried walls, roads, and foundations without ever having to put a shovel in the ground. It's like having an X-ray for the earth, allowing for a much more precise and efficient excavation. We can now map entire ancient cities, understanding their layout and structure, before beginning the time-consuming process of digging. This technology has helped uncover the extent of lost Roman towns in Europe and shed new light on the size of ancient settlements in the Middle East. And we can see from space. High-resolution satellite imagery has allowed archaeologists to spot subtle changes in soil color or vegetation that betray the presence of buried structures. Even in the deserts, thermal imaging from satellites can detect the faint temperature differences between buried stone walls and the surrounding sand. These tools have helped us pinpoint the locations of vast Viking settlements and long-lost cities along ancient trade routes in Asia. But it's not just about finding the places, it's about finding the people. New forensic techniques are giving us an unprecedented look into the lives of the individuals who lived in these forgotten kingdoms. DNA analysis of ancient remains can reveal migration patterns, a person's ancestry, and even their genetic lineage, connecting them to living populations today. Isotopic analysis of human bones and teeth can tell us what a person ate and where they grew up, giving us a personal, intimate look at the daily lives of people who lived thousands of years ago. The combined power of these technologies is not just adding new chapters to our history books, it's rewriting them entirely. It's proving that many of the so-called empty spaces on our maps were once teeming with life. It's challenging our assumptions about how civilizations rise and fall, and it's reminding us that the human story is vast and complex, filled with voices that are only now beginning to be heard again. The era of discovering lost civilizations is far from over. With every new technological advance, we are getting closer to unearthing another giant from the shadows of time. We've spent a great deal of time exploring how forgotten kingdoms can be brought back to life by the powerful tools of modern archaeology. But before we get lost in the wonder of what has been found, we must confront a more difficult truth. Some kingdoms are not forgotten by the passage of time or the forces of nature, but are deliberately erased from memory by the mightiest forces on earth. The story of our past is, more often than not, a story told by the victors. And when an empire conquers a rival, it doesn't just claim their land and their treasure, it claims their history. For centuries, no one was better at this than the Romans. The Roman Empire was a master of cultural assimilation, a powerful machine that absorbed the peoples, religions, and traditions of its conquered territories. We see this in the way they adopted Greek gods, Egyptian styles, and even Celtic symbols. But this wasn't an act of pure cultural exchange, it was an act of dominance. The histories of the conquered peoples were not preserved on their own terms. Instead, they were recontextualized, reframed, and often suppressed to fit into the grand, heroic narrative of Roman expansion. The Roman historian was not just a chronicler of events, they were a propagandist, ensuring that the story of a conquered kingdom was always told through the lens of Roman triumph. The records, the texts, the very names of kings and queens of the subjugated people were often relegated to a single line in a Roman ledger or lost entirely. This was a form of cultural damnatio memoriae, or the condemnation of memory, a practice the Romans used to erase an enemy from history. When applied to an entire culture, the effect is profound. Take for example the numerous tribal kingdoms of Gaul and Britannia. We know them largely through the biased accounts of Roman generals like Julius Caesar. Their own versions of history, their oral traditions, and their unique perspectives were never recorded, or if they were actively destroyed. The Celtic peoples of Britain, for instance, were fierce, complex, and deeply spiritual. But because their stories were not written down in the way the Romans saw fit, they became a blank space in our historical record, their history reduced to the narratives of Roman conquest. This pattern, of course, is not unique to the Romans. It is a recurring theme throughout human history. The Persian Empire, while often celebrated for its tolerance and diversity, still had a dominant narrative that marginalized the stories of the peoples under its rule. The Achaemenid and later the Sasanian empires, with their grand chronicles and royal histories, absorbed the stories of smaller kingdoms, reducing their epic sagas to simple footnotes in a larger imperial story. And later, the vast Mongol Empire, though a beacon of trade and knowledge exchange, still flattened the histories of countless conquered nations under the weight of its own narrative of conquest and imperial power. The consequence of this is that the historical record we have today is inherently fractured and incomplete. We are left with a history told mostly from the perspective of the powerful. The stories of the Mayans, the Khmer, and the Nabateans are all the more precious precisely because they offer a glimpse into a world that was not shaped by the whims of a Roman or Persian emperor. They are a testament to the fact that civilizations can build, create, and thrive in ways that have nothing to do with the great empires that surround them. Our work as historians and archaeologists is, therefore, a constant battle against this deliberate forgetting. It is a search for the silenced voices, the hidden narratives, and the lost perspectives. The very act of unearthing a forgotten kingdom is an act of defiance against the empires that tried to bury them. It is a reminder that a civilization's legacy is not just what it leaves behind, but also who gets to tell its story. The rise of a new empire often means the fall of a dozen smaller, equally brilliant kingdoms into the abyss of oblivion. But with every new discovery, we are slowly, painstakingly, putting those lost pieces back together, revealing a more complete and a more honest picture of our shared past. The lost kingdoms we have explored were not merely collections of people and monuments, they were living libraries of human ingenuity. Their rise was built not only on political power or wealth but on a foundation of unique knowledge and technology perfectly adapted to their environment. When these civilizations fell, they took with them not just their stories and their names, but a treasure trove of wisdom that may never be fully recovered. We are now left to piece together their brilliant innovations from the silent evidence they left behind. Consider again the Nabateans, a kingdom of desert merchants who built their capital of Petra in a place where no city should have existed. Their most magnificent achievement was not a temple or a tomb, but an engineering feat that gave them absolute control over their environment, their mastery of water. For centuries, the Nabateans perfected a system of hydraulic engineering that was unparalleled in the ancient world. They carved intricate series of channels, cisterns, and dams into the very sandstone cliffs of the canyons, designed to capture every last drop of the infrequent desert rainfall. They built covered aqueducts to transport water to their city, and they sealed off their underground reservoirs with a unique form of waterproof plaster to prevent evaporation. This technology transformed the hostile desert into a vibrant oasis, allowing them to support a large urban population and to become a crucial stop on the world's most lucrative trade routes. But when the kingdom was absorbed by the Romans, much of this specialized, localized knowledge was lost. The Romans, with their own vast aqueduct systems, had no need for the Nabateans' unique and labor-intensive methods, and the wisdom of living in harmony with the desert was not passed on. It simply faded, a testament to how easily a specific and brilliant technology can be forgotten when a new power with different priorities takes control. Our journey through lost technology takes us next to the seas of Southeast Asia, to the maritime kingdom of Srivijaya. From the 7th to the 13th centuries, this forgotten empire ruled the treacherous waters of the Strait of Malacca, controlling the flow of goods between India and China. Its power was built not on land but on the water, supported by a sophisticated and highly specialized naval technology that we are only just beginning to understand. Srivijayan ships were marvels of engineering, designed to be swift and stable in the unpredictable monsoon seasons. Their sailors were masters of navigation, possessing an intimate knowledge of the currents and winds that guided trade throughout the region. This advanced naval prowess allowed them to collect taxes on all passing vessels, establishing a network of influence that stretched from Sumatra to the Philippines. But when internal strife and external pressures led to the kingdom's decline, its unique naval expertise was not absorbed by its successors. The specialized knowledge of shipbuilding, navigation, and maritime law that had sustained Srivijaya was scattered and lost, leaving a void that would take centuries to fill. And in southern Africa, we find the silent testimony of a lost architectural genius. The Kingdom of Great Zimbabwe was a powerful state that flourished between the 11th and 15th centuries. Its wealth was built on gold and cattle, and its power was expressed in stone. The ruins of its capital, Great Zimbabwe, are truly magnificent. Without the use of mortar, its masons constructed towering walls, some up to 11 meters high, from perfectly fitted granite blocks. This was a form of dry stone masonry that was so precise and so advanced that it has been a source of awe and wonder for centuries. It was a technology born of local knowledge and a unique understanding of geology and physics, a skill set that allowed them to create a magnificent capital that served as a symbol of their power. But after the kingdom's decline, this specialized architectural knowledge was not passed on. The secrets of this mortarless construction, this unique mastery of stone, were lost to history, leaving behind a profound question. How were these monuments built, and why was their genius forgotten? These are just 3 examples of a greater, more heartbreaking truth. The stories of lost kingdoms are not just about the fall of power, they are about the loss of human potential. A unique understanding of the desert, a mastery of the seas, a brilliant architectural technique, each one a priceless piece of a puzzle we may never complete. The disappearance of these civilizations reminds us that knowledge is not universal. It is often tied to a specific people, a specific place, and a specific time. And when a culture is forgotten, its unique wisdom, its secrets, and its genius are often buried with it, leaving us to wonder what other brilliant ideas lie waiting to be rediscovered beneath the sands of time. The stories of forgotten kingdoms are more than just archaeological curiosities or historical footnotes. They are a mirror held up to our own world, a collection of cautionary tales separated by thousands of years and thousands of miles. The challenges they faced, environmental catastrophe, social division, economic upheaval, are the very same challenges that we confront today. The brilliant rise and tragic fall of these civilizations are not just chapters in a forgotten history, they are a profound guide for navigating the uncertain waters of our own future. Let's first revisit the devastating impact of nature. We saw how the Mayan civilization, for all its astronomical genius and monumental architecture, was ultimately brought to its knees by a series of prolonged droughts. Similarly, the mysterious decline of the Indus Valley civilization is now believed to have been tied to a fundamental change in climate, a gradual shift that made their carefully engineered cities unsustainable. The lesson here is clear and urgent. No matter how sophisticated our technology, how complex our society, we are fundamentally tied to the health and stability of our environment. They built their societies on the assumption of a stable climate, and when that assumption proved false, their entire civilization unraveled. Their story is a powerful reminder that an over-reliance on a fragile ecosystem, or an overexploitation of our planet's resources, can lead to a collapse that no military or economic power can prevent. Then there is the lesson of social cohesion. The Khmer Empire, at its height, was a true wonder of the world, a civilization that built its power on the divine authority of its god-kings. But as internal religious beliefs shifted and a new form of Buddhism took hold, the very foundation of their political and social structure began to crack. This internal strife, coupled with external pressures, proved to be their undoing. Similarly, the Picts of Scotland did not fall in a great battle. They were slowly absorbed by a neighboring culture, their unique identity and language fading away as social and political unity was lost. These stories teach us that a shared sense of identity, a common purpose, is a powerful binding force. When that bond is broken by internal division, ideological conflict, or the simple loss of what makes a people unique, a society becomes vulnerable, losing the very cohesion needed to face a crisis. A house divided, as they say, cannot stand. Finally, we have the lesson of economic vulnerability. The Nabatean kingdom, with its capital in Petra, and the kingdom of Dilmun in the heart of the Persian Gulf, were not built on conquest but on commerce. Their immense wealth and power came from controlling key trade routes. Yet, their very success contained the seeds of their demise. When those trade routes shifted, whether by the expansion of a new empire like Rome or by the rise of new naval technologies, the foundation of their power was pulled out from under them. They did not fall to the sword, they simply became economically irrelevant. In our modern, globalized world, where entire economies are built on specific technologies or trade networks, the story of Dilmun and the Nabateans is a powerful cautionary tale. It shows us that a society that fails to adapt to a changing economic landscape can find itself on the fast track to becoming forgotten, its power and wealth evaporating in the blink of a historical eye. The rise and fall of these forgotten kingdoms offer a brutal but essential honesty. They remind us that the forces that shape our destiny, climate, social harmony, and economic adaptability, are timeless. They teach us that even the mightiest civilizations are not invincible, and that a single flaw, if left unaddressed, can lead to their undoing. The past is not just a relic for us to study, it is a living guide, a series of lessons carved into stone and buried under the sands of time, waiting for us to learn from them before it is too late. The stories we have told thus far, of the Mayans, the Khmer, and the Nabateans, may seem like tales from a past that is now fully known. But the truth is, for every great civilization we have brought back to light, there are dozens, perhaps hundreds, more that remain lost to us. They are scattered across the globe, hidden under layers of soil, buried beneath shifting sands, or even submerged beneath the waves. The age of discovery is not over. It has simply moved to a new frontier, one where technology and human curiosity are uncovering a past far richer and more complex than we ever imagined. The search continues, and with every new find, the map of our history is being redrawn. Think, for a moment, of the Amazon. For decades, it was considered a pristine, untouched wilderness, a hostile environment that could never have supported large-scale civilizations. But recent satellite imagery and LiDAR scans have shattered that assumption. They are revealing vast, interconnected networks of settlements, ceremonial mounds, and large-scale earthworks that suggest a civilization on a colossal scale, a lost world of jungle cities and agricultural feats. We are no longer looking for a single city, we are looking for an entire lost civilization, a culture that may have thrived for centuries, its existence erased by a combination of disease and the relentless forces of nature. The Amazon is proving to be a treasure trove of forgotten kingdoms, each one a new puzzle waiting to be solved. And the quest for discovery isn't limited to the land. The world's oceans and seas hold their own secrets, silent testimony to civilizations that were once at the heart of their world. In the Mediterranean, for example, archaeologists are using sonar and underwater robotics to explore the possibility of submerged settlements along ancient coastlines, cities that were swallowed by rising sea levels at the end of the last ice age. The very legend of Atlantis, once dismissed as a myth, is now being re-examined in the light of new evidence that suggests real, once flourishing coastal communities may have been submerged in cataclysmic floods. This is a new frontier of archaeology, one that requires not a trowel and a brush, but a deep-sea submersible and an adventurous spirit, a quest to find the civilizations that were lost to the sea. But the search is not just for grand cities or legendary lands, it is for the stories of the people themselves. In the deserts of Central Asia, archaeologists are using forensic techniques to analyze the remains of ancient nomads and merchants along the Silk Road. By studying their DNA and the isotopes in their bones, we can trace their migration patterns, understand their diets, and learn about the intricate web of connections that link these forgotten peoples. We are learning that the Silk Road was not just a path for goods, but a highway for ideas, for cultures, and for people who left no written record of their own. This work is giving a voice to the voiceless, revealing the hidden history of the millions who lived and died in a world we are only just beginning to understand. This new era of discovery is a race against time. Many of these forgotten sites, once protected by their remote location, are now threatened by development, industrial agriculture, and climate change. Rising sea levels, shifting sands, and even looting pose a constant threat to these precious historical records. That is why the work of archaeologists and historians today is more urgent than ever before. They are not just on a quest for knowledge, they are on a mission to preserve our shared human story before it is lost forever. And the best part is that this mission is no longer reserved for a few specialists. With the advent of technology like Google Earth, we can all become a part of the search. Countless hidden sites have been discovered by everyday people with a keen eye for subtle anomalies in the landscape, leading to real-world expeditions and breathtaking finds. The story of human history is not a closed book. It is a living, breathing narrative that is still being written, one discovery at a time. The search continues, and somewhere, right now, a forgotten kingdom is waiting to be found. The stories of these forgotten kingdoms, of empires swallowed by the jungle, cities carved into rock, and peoples erased from the historical record, were for a long time the domain of a few dedicated scholars and archaeologists. But in the modern world, a new force has emerged, one so powerful and pervasive that it can bring these lost worlds back to life for millions of people. That force is popular culture. From the grand scale of Hollywood blockbusters to the immersive worlds of video games, these ancient, forgotten narratives are being rediscovered, romanticized, and reimagined, ensuring they are never truly lost again. Take, for example, the Nabatean city of Petra. For centuries, it was known only to local tribes and a handful of explorers. Then, in 1989, a film crew arrived to shoot the climactic scene of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. The film's final sequence, where Indiana Jones rides through a narrow, winding canyon to arrive at the iconic treasury, introduced Petra to a global audience. The awe and wonder felt by moviegoers was immediate and powerful. It transformed the city from an archaeological curiosity into a legendary site, sparking a wave of tourism and, in turn, a renewed interest in the history of the Nabatean people. This single film did more to bring a forgotten kingdom back into the public consciousness than decades of academic research. This trend extends far beyond a single film. The mythical, mysterious nature of these lost civilizations makes them a perfect backdrop for adventure and fantasy. The dense, overgrown ruins of the Khmer Empire and the hidden temples of the Maya have become iconic settings in films and television shows, feeding a modern fascination with the ancient world. They are often portrayed as places of peril and wonder, home to ancient secrets and long-lost treasures. While these depictions can be romanticized or historically inaccurate, they serve a crucial purpose. They introduce a new generation to these cultures and inspire a deeper dive into the true history behind the myths. We might first encounter the Picts as fierce, blue-painted warriors in a fantasy series, but that initial intrigue can lead us down a path to understanding the real history of their people and their place in the ancient world. But perhaps the most immersive way these forgotten kingdoms are being reborn is through video games. In games like Tomb Raider and Uncharted, players are put in the shoes of a modern-day adventurer exploring magnificent ruins inspired by real-world sites. They crawl through forgotten tunnels, solve puzzles in ancient temples, and navigate overgrown cities, experiencing a visceral sense of discovery. The sheer scale of these digital worlds can make the history feel more tangible and real than any book or documentary. Beyond adventure games, major franchises like Assassin's Creed have dedicated themselves to meticulously recreating entire ancient worlds based on extensive historical research. While they take creative liberties, they build vast, living, breathing cities and landscapes, from ancient Egypt to classical Greece, filled with historically accurate details, making players feel like they are stepping back in time. The influence of popular culture on the study of forgotten kingdoms is a fascinating and often complex phenomenon. On one hand, there is the risk of misinformation, of myth taking the place of fact, and of history being turned into a caricature. But on the other, the benefits are undeniable. It drives tourism, which can provide vital funding for archaeological sites and local communities. It sparks a curiosity in millions of people who might otherwise never have a connection to the ancient world. It shows us that these long-lost cultures are not dusty, academic subjects, but sources of powerful and enduring stories. Ultimately, popular culture is now an essential part of the journey of these forgotten kingdoms. It is the engine that transforms a buried ruin into a cultural touchstone, a scientific discovery into a global fascination. It ensures that the stories of the Maya, the Nabateans, the Khmer, and the countless others we have yet to discover will continue to be told, not just in scholarly journals, but on a global stage, ensuring that these remarkable civilizations, for all their trials and tribulations, will never truly be forgotten. Our journey through the rise and fall of forgotten kingdoms is now coming to a close. We have traveled across continents and through millennia, unearthing the stories of civilizations that, for one reason or another, were nearly erased from our collective memory. We began with the mighty Mayans, whose intricate society was not conquered by a foreign army but was brought to its knees by the relentless force of a changing climate. We explored the kingdom of Dilmun, a crucial hub of ancient trade that simply lost its purpose when a new economic order emerged. We discovered the Picts of Scotland, a fierce people who were not defeated on the battlefield but were slowly and peacefully absorbed into a new cultural identity. And we marveled at the Nabateans, brilliant merchants who carved a city from solid rock, only to see their unique way of life made obsolete by the expansion of a new global empire. What these stories show us is that the narrative of our past is not a simple story of triumph and defeat. It is a complex tapestry woven with threads of environmental change, economic shifts, and the simple human act of forgetting. For every great empire we remember, there is a forgotten kingdom that gave way, a culture that was absorbed, a society that faded from view. But as we've also seen, the past is never truly lost. Through the power of modern technology, LiDAR, ground-penetrating radar, and genetic analysis, we are now more than ever able to peer through the veil of time and bring these lost stories back to life. It is an exciting time to be a part of the human story. And this is where our journey becomes your own. If you have been captivated by the rise and fall of these empires, if you have felt the awe of discovery and the wonder of the past, then we invite you to join us on this quest. We are committed to unearthing the hidden chapters of history and sharing them with you. By subscribing to our channel, you are not just watching. You are becoming a part of a community dedicated to a more complete and honest understanding of our shared human story. Join us as we continue to explore the silent cities, the lost monuments, and the untold narratives that are waiting to be found. For in the end, the story of these forgotten kingdoms is a profound lesson for us all. It reminds us that no matter how powerful, how wealthy, or how brilliant a civilization may be, it is never guaranteed to last forever. Its legacy is not just in the monuments it leaves behind, but in the lessons it offers to future generations. These cultures, though long gone, have much to say to us today. They warn us of the perils of environmental neglect and social division. They remind us of the fragility of our economic systems and the impermanence of our power. And in their silent ruins, they offer a testament to the incredible ingenuity and resilience of the human spirit. By remembering them, we ensure that their struggles and their triumphs are not in vain. By telling their stories, we give them a new life, a new purpose. We are not just looking at a lost past, we are looking at a living guide for our own future. The story of human history is a book with countless empty pages, waiting to be filled. And with every new discovery, every new insight, we get closer to understanding where we came from and, perhaps, where we are going. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through time. We hope to see you on the next one.